Today's gospel reading coming out of the 5th chapter of Mark, verses 21 to 43 inclusive. In today's gospel reading, Jesus performs two miracles, two healings. And in each instant, Jesus used the exact same method to allow those healings, those miracles to occur. As a matter of fact, in the New Testament Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, every time Jesus performs a healing, a miracle, he uses the exact same method. He doesn't deviate from what works. Let's take a look at a small section of today's gospel reading that will show us what the difference maker is in the life of those whom he healed, and our life as well. So this is, again, is the 5th chapter of Mark. This is going to be verse 25, verse 27 to 29. There was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. She said, "If I but touch his clothes, I shall be cured." Immediately her flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Now, when you look at that section, you see what had to occur in order for this gal to be cured of her hemorrhages. Do you see what it is? Exactly right. Take a look. It says right there, "If I but touch his clothes." And that's what she does. She touches his clothes, and she's given the healing. Now, it turns out to be that touch is going to be essential. Now, I said that every time Jesus performed healing, a miracle in the Gospels, he always uses the same method. Let's take a look at this next section of the Gospel reading just to see if that is accurate. Let's take a look at this section right here. This, again, the 5th chapter of Mark, this time verse 22 to 23 and verse 41 to 42. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came forward. Seeing him, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, saying, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come, lay your hands on her, that she may get well and live." Now, they knew at that point that healing occurred by touch. That's why they say to Jesus, "Please come, lay your hands on her, that she may get well and live." Now, Jesus took the child by the hand and said, "Talitha koum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." A child of 12 arose immediately and walked around. So it was the gift of touch. You know, Leo Buscaglia, the great child psychologist, said that the greatest healing power in the world is the power of touch. That's why he always used to say that when God created human beings, he gave us arms so that we could touch, we could heal someone. Booker T. Washington, a person I always enjoy reading his biography, what he did in American history, an African-American educator, the late 1800s. Booker Washington said this: "We should use our hands and our arms to lift someone up, not to push someone down." That makes sense. Because he believed that if you use your hands and your arms wisely, then great healing can occur. The connection between you and another human being. The connection between you and your God. If you're saying to yourself this morning, "I don't feel God in my life, but he is the difference maker. How do I get God to touch me?" You know, the ordination ceremony of the priest. Now, yesterday morning, we had one man ordained for our diocese. Young fellow, really nice guy, by the name of David Carr. Every ordination ceremony, they're almost all exactly the same. First of all, they take a long time, as you would suspect they would. His ordination ceremony, 2.5 hours. And typically that's about right. That's about the average amount of time. It's a little longer if you have more than one man being ordained, a priest, but we had only one, so it was 2.5 hours. What I find amazing about the ordination ceremony, the actual conferral of the priesthood. Now, what happens is this: for 2.5 hours, the ceremony is full of music and readings and prayers and words and homily by the bishop. When does the actual ordination point take place? It takes place at a time of total silence, when not one word is spoken. The man to be ordained, and this happened to me, and it happened to Father Carr yesterday. The man to be ordained walks up to the bishop, kneels down before the bishop. The bishop is sitting on his chair, what's known as the cathedra, the chair. And the bishop simply places his hands on the head of the young man, or whatever the age of person happens to be, and places his hands on the head of the person to be ordained a priest. Doesn't say a word, not one word. I can still, as I'm offering this description, I can still feel the hands of the bishop on my head. It seemed like it was there for a long time. It might have only been 10, 15 seconds, I'm not sure. It felt a long time. And then when a bishop lifted off his hands off of David Carr's head yesterday, at that very, you stand up, then you are a priest. Now, when he placed his hands on my head, I felt something occur in my heart. I felt the touch. I felt the transference of the Spirit from the bishop to me. When I stood up and I was told in theology class, that is the moment of the priesthood transferal, when the bishop places his hands on your head, when he takes them off, you're a priest. And I felt it. I knew when I stood up, it was no longer just Kenny. I knew that I was something different. I knew that something had taken place. I literally felt a change in my life. I felt the difference maker of God, of Jesus Christ touching my life in a special way. I knew from that point forward, things would never be the same. Never. But they'd be better in a much better way. And when a bishop took his hands off of David Carr's head yesterday, I said to myself, as I watched this young man stand up, I said, that's it. It just happened. Now that's reinforced by one of the most beautiful customs that you'll ever see if you ever go to an ordination ceremony. They're awe-inspiring. It is the bishop's laying on of hands that makes the person the priest. But it is affirmed by this. As David Carr stood in the center of the cathedral, he knelt down on a kneeling. All the priests who are there, they assemble, they form a single file line, and one by one they walk over to him and they place their hands on his head. That is not the conferral of the priesthood. It occurs with the bishops laying on his hands on the man's head. But just shows you the confraternity, the fraternity of the priesthood. I always enjoy doing that. I can't wait till it's my turn. And I press hard. I'm not sure, a couple times over the years I pressed so hard the guy looks up to see who it is. But I find it a very enjoyable thing to do. It is the touch. Now you might be saying to yourself, but I need God to touch me. I want him to touch my soul. I want him to touch my heart. I need him to touch my life. My life is out of touch. When families aren't getting along, why is that? When families are having one argument after another, why can't families get along? Well, one of the reasons is this: families don't get along, who don't get along, is because they're out of touch with each other, not in touch with each other. You see the difference? If you are in touch with your family members, then you're getting along. Doesn't mean that every day is nirvana, but you understand each other because you're in touch. And what a difference it makes in life if you're having trouble with a family member. All you need to do is to somehow communicate, to reach out, touch. Touch by communication. Touch by the handshake. Touch by saying, I'm sorry, it was my fault, that last argument. I realized that. I realized it then, but I was too proud to say now, and back then it was my fault. It is a connection, the touch, that brings the family in touch with each other so they can get along maybe the first time in a long time, or certain family members for the first time in a long time. Allow God to touch you. Now you might be saying to yourself, but I have no idea where he's at. You know, we're so busy sometimes, we're racing around, going here, going there, going there. God's saying, I love to touch you, but I can't find you. I want to put my hands on you, but you went somewhere. What you need to do every so often in life is to stop. You don't have to kneel down. But if you stop, kneel down, or sit down, whatever it is, and just be in a quiet location and say, God, I am here. I need you to touch my soul and to touch my heart. I am falling apart. Put me back together. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. I need put back together. And only you can heal me. Only you can put me back together. Where are you? You are the master. And through the master's hand, I can be put back together. That's what I need. And if you're quiet, and you invite God into your life, and you're kneeling or sitting or somewhere you're quiet, it could be in your car, it could be in a park bench out in the forest. It could be in the quiet of one of your house rooms. But just allow yourself to be there and say, God, come now, come today. I'm focused on you. I know you tried to touch me many times, and you have, but I was racing around so much, I didn't realize it. I didn't know that was you. You knocked at the door of my heart, and it was so tightly closed, I never thought about opening it. I just want to read this little poem to you. It's called The Touch of the Master's Hand. It's about a violin that changes its integrity through the touch of a master. In our lives, that the master is God. Let's just take a look at this poem. It was battered and scarred, and the auctioneer thought it was hardly worth his while to waste his time in the old violin, but he held it up with a smile. What am I bidding, good people? He cried. Who will start the bidding for me? $1, $1, do I hear two? $2 once, $2 twice, who makes it three? $3 once, $3 twice, going for three. But no. From the room far back, a gray bearded man came forward and picked up the bow. Then wiping the dust from the old violin and tightening up the strings, he played a melody pure and sweet as the angels sings. The music ceased, and the auctioneer, with a voice that was quiet and low, said, "What now am I bid for this old violin?" And he held it up with its bow. 1,000 once, 1,000 twice, do I hear two? 2,000, who makes it three? 3,000 once, 3,000 twice, going and gone, said he. Now the auctioneer cheered, but some of them cried, "We just don't understand what change is worth." Swift came the reply. It was the touch of the master's hand. And many a man with life out of tune and battered and bruised with sin is auctioned cheap to the thoughtless crowd, much like that old violin. A mess of pottage, a glass of wine, a game, and he travels on. He's going once, he's going twice, he is going and almost gone. But the master comes, and the foolish crowd never quite understands the worth of a soul and a change that is wrought by the touch of the master's hand. That's how it works. If you're out of tune, if you need tuned up and you say to yourself, I need to feel God in my life. God is the difference maker. The touch is the difference maker. Then just allow God to touch it. That's all it takes. But you need to be quiet. You need to invite him into your heart, invite him into your life. But just sitting there and saying, God, I'm ready. I know you try to touch me many times in my soul, in my heart, in my life, in my family. But I've been too busy running around. I didn't realize it. But I'm ready now. Because I'm falling apart now. And I need put back together. I got to find my worth. I have to find my value. Because right now I feel worthless. But I want to feel worthwhile. Allow the master to touch you. And your life will always change for the better. The touch of the master's hand.